Ruth Cabal, and we want to thank everyone who sent their questions to us through our social media pages. Ang daming nagtutweet at nagtatrending nga tayo. Also, may mga lumapit din sa ating mga reporters and even our stringers from the provinces who sent in their questions.
Our next topic is about taxes. It's a specific question for Walden Bello. In an interview with CNN Philippines, you said that the country's billionaires should pay more taxes to generate more funds for the poor. We'd like to know more about these additional taxes to the rich that you are talking about and how exactly, Mr. Bello, will these funds be allocated to the poor?
Well, we propose, Calyode and I, my presidential candidate, we propose that we would tax the top 250 to 500 billionaires in this country to 1 to 3% of their wealth, which means income, land, etc., etc. Now, this will yield about 1 trillion pesos, which would come to about 20-25% of the budget and more. Okay? Now, this is quite small. Okay? If you look at taxation rates in other countries, they go on the top levels, 20, 30, 35% in the US, something like around 39% in Germany. So our rich have no cause to complain. So this is going to be made as transfer payments to social services. Is this going to be possible? Of course, it is possible. One, it is very small part of their income. Okay. Two is that there are, in fact, many people among the rich in this country at this point, especially the younger rich, who are saying that we really need to be socially responsible. And then three is even Joey Salceda has said, that the rich now have to pay because they benefited from the pandemic. So this is a very sound thing.
Itutuloy natin ang issue dito sa buwis, and Senator Soto, you and your running mate, Senator Ping Lacson, have criticized the Finance Department's proposal for new taxes to manage government debt. Sabi po ninyo, ayusin ang pagkolekta ng buwis. How will you resolve the collection of taxes?
Digitalization. That is the answer, number one answer at the Bureau of Customs. We have given them the funds for it already, hindi kinukumpleto. Bakit? They want human intervention. Once we remove human intervention, we remove corruption, and we improve the collection of taxes. Ganun mismo, kahit sa biyaya, kailangan improve natin collection of taxes. Hindi pa pwedeng dagdag ng tax. Nagbawas nga kami. We passed in the CREATE law that yung lahat ng below 250,000 a year ang kinikita, hindi dapat magbayad ng income tax. Pinasa din namin yun.
Okay, moving on to Mr. Manny Lopez, who is an economist. Your question, to increase taxes or not, at ano pong klase ng buwis?
I think the fiscal side of governance in this country has to improve. And there is a lot of room for improvement. First and foremost, the collection of taxes should be more efficient. Any avoidance of taxes should be penalized. And e-governance, as the good Senate President has mentioned, is a part of our legislative and executive agenda to improve efficiency in tax collection. On the same premise, on the other side of the coin, is to make best use of our taxes. And this means elimination of the leakages in the public finance sector, make our project implementation and program implementation more efficient, and there should be, better auditing procedures to make sure that every tax collected from the people should be spent wisely. So it's an overall picture. And the Public Finance Reform Management Act, which remains to be implemented up to this time, has not been implemented. And given the mandate to assume a more responsible position in this republic, we will make sure that our taxation system, our fiscal policy will be improved dramatically. Thank you.
And since we are on the topic of tax collection, the Bureau of Internal Revenue, or BIR, has been identified by the Anti-Corruption Task Force as one of the graft-prone agencies. Once upon a time, there was even a proposal to abolish the Bureau. Former President and Vice President turned lawmaker Gloria Macapagal Arroyo proposed in 2017 to replace the BIR with a National Revenue Authority. Ang sinabi niya, there is a need to address growing taxpayer dissatisfaction and the increasing perception of systemic corruption in the BIR. Our question is, as Vice President, how will you help end the systemic corruption in the BIR? Senator Pangilinan, you have 90 seconds.
Well, again, I will go back to, you have to punish swiftly the guilty. Hindi pa pwedeng hindi pinaparusahan ang mga nagkakasala. Ang nangyayari kasi, pag ikaw ay magnakaw nga ng mas marami, mas meron kang abogado, makakalusot ka dahil mabagal ang sistema ng katarungan. In the long run, you have to modernize your judiciary. You cannot have a modern judiciary with a third world budget. So we really have to increase support for our judiciary. Dagdagan pa ang benefits ng mga huwes, mga prosecutor, ng mga court staff para maging efficient. Increase the budget. If we can double it, why not? And in exchange, dapat mabilis ang paglilitis. Ngayon kasi 6 na taon ang average na paglilitis. Dapat yan mabawasan sa 3 o 2 taon na lamang. Dahil pag mas marami ang napaparusahan sa mabalis na paraan, talagang magkakaroon ng takot at respeto sa ating mga batas. So that's how you address corruption and that's how you address itong misfeasance or pang-aabuso sa pwesto. Hindi lang ng BIR at iba pang mga ahensya. Balikan ko rin lang, between imposing more taxes and having a more efficient system of collection, we should always prioritize the latter. Dahil hindi nakokolekta. 700 billion pesos a year, sabi ng COA, ang nawawala sa corruption. Siyempre, ang pakiramdam ng taxpayer, ibinabayad ko sa inyo, ninanakaw lang ninyo. So kinakailangan talaga ng mabilis na paglilitis at parusa ng corruption issue.
So, Senator Pangilinan, paano natin pwedeng iksian ang paglilitis? Alam natin dito ang hustisya sa Pilipinas matagal sa mga korte.
Unang-una, fill up all the vacancies in our court system. There are about 25% of our courts walang judge, kaya mabagal. To add more courts para yung dami ng kaso ay hindi na overloaded ang court system natin. And of course, hire more judges, give them more support, and then ito nga, convene the JELA, which is the Judiciary Executive Legislative Advisory Council. The Senate President, the Speaker of the House, the Chief Justice, and the President of the country sits in the JELA. It has been convened twice in 2008. It should be convened when the next administration comes in. And we talk about budgetary support. We talk about magkano pa ang kailangan para talagang marami na ang ating courts para mabawasan o bumilis ang paglilitis. Pagka masyadong maraming kaso, isang judge, mabagal talaga. Pag mas marami ang korte, mas marami ang judges, mas mabilis ang desisyon. At magiging 2 years na lang yan.
Balikan natin yung original na tanong kay Dr. Willie Ong. Ano po ang gagawin nyo para labanan ang systemic corruption sa BIR?
Yes, talaga mahirap talaga magbayad ng tax dito sa atin eh. Minsan gusto mo na magbayad ng tunay, ayaw pa rin nila tanggapin, kailangan may lagay. Tama naman po sinabi ni Senator Tito Soto, kailangan i-computerize. Alisin yung usap ng tao sa tao, dyan makukuha yung corruption. Pwede natin i-simplify yung pagbayad ng tax. Isa pa, pwede natin i-broaden, paramihin yung nagbabayad ng tax. Ayon sa pag-aaral, parang 19% lang ang nagbabayad eh. Kaya nahihirapan yung 19%. Kung mas marami ang magbabayad, mas magaan ito. At i-encourage natin yung mga tao na magbayad. Kasi yung buwis na binabayad nyo, yan ang pang-sweldo sa teacher, di ba? Para proud tayo na magbayad. Pwede rin ayusin yung BIR eh. May concept na i-retire mo, tapos i-rehire mo yung iba. Pwede natin gawin to para malinis yung mga bad apples. Tuloy-tuloy din yung tulong natin sa MSME. Dagdag ko lang sa ibang bansa, meron silang philanthropy mindset eh. Meron silang Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, ang laking pera binibigay, long-term tulong sa Amerika. Sa atin, yung mayayaman natin, parang walang philanthropy mindset eh. Pero kulang tayo dyan. Kung yung mga mayayaman sa Pilipinas, gagawa ng long-term projects para ma-alleviate, matulungan tayong mga mahihirap. Salamat po.
Walden Bello, your response.
Well, I think that, let's be honest, no? Alam naman natin tax breaks na binibigay ng ating executive as well as the Senate and the House, no? Yung napakalaking tax break, yan yung create law. Binabaan yung corporate income tax from 30% to 20%. And for foreign businesses, from 30 to 25%. Ang laki, trilyon-trilyon na nawala sa atin yan. Ang tagal na ng agenda nila, even before pandemic. Pero ginamit tayo, they used the pandemic to get what they wanted. So, Senator Soto, Senator Pangilinan, pareho kayo nagboto sa CREATE Act that gave big tax breaks. So what are you saying, that you are not guilty of this process? Tama na yan, kalokohan na yan.
Senator Soto.
When we pass laws, it's the Congress that pass. Bakit pinag-iinitan mo kami dalawa?
Senator Soto.
Well, I don't think we should, huwag na natin patulan yung mga ganong style.
May I first?
Kiko?
Yes.
Kiko. And then we go to Mr. Manny Lopez.
Yes. Again, the issue of taxation is really a very sticky issue. No? Pero, nasa gitna tayo ng pandemya, hindi lang yung maliliit, pati yung mga malalaki na naapektuhan ng pandemya, yung negosyo nagsasara. And the CREATE law precisely, binabaan ito as a means to be able to provide support. Even the biggest companies like itong mga airline companies, bilyon-bilyon din ang nawawala sa kanila dahil dito sa pandemya. So we voted in favor of that because we recognized na iba ang kondisyon sa ngayon because of the pandemic. Unprecedented yung bagsak ng ating ekonomiya, unprecedented itong kawalan ng hanap buhay at trabaho. Kaya dapat unprecedented din ang kilos. I can understand yung concern ni Professor Bello regarding yun na nga, itong mga tax perks and tax breaks. But because it was a different, never before experienced pandemic which really killed, bagsak talaga yung ekonomiya, we felt it best to provide assistance and support for companies.
Mr. Manny Lopez.
I have a question to my fraternity brad, Senator Kiko Pangilinan. A very simple question lang, Brad. Kaya nyo bang, since you mentioned about judicial independence and objectivity, kaya nyo bang litisin ang fellow senator nyo kung nagkaroon ng malaking issue or participation in graft and corruption? I happen to be a participant of the Million People March. At ipinagmarcha po namin yan. And maraming mga legislators ang nasangkot dyan, reportedly about 100. Mabuti na lang ang fraternity brad ko, hindi kasali doon. And si Senator Soto. But as a general question, kaya nyo bang litisin ang kapwa nyo senador kung nasangkot sa graft and corruption?
Well, that's...
Very short answer lang po.
Merong ethics committee sa ating Senado, but of course, paglilitis ang pinag-usapan, sa hudikatura yan. No? And in fact, ang nangyari nga, nitong nakaraan, 3 senador ang nakulong dahil dun sa paglilitis sa Napoles Fund. Pero nung nanalo na ang bagong administration, o bago pa man at nung nanalo, nabaliktad yung sitwasyon.
Senate President Tito Soto. And then finally,
Yes.
before we go to the break, Mr. Serapio.
Yes, the answer is in the affirmative. There is a committee on ethics. If there is a case filed against a senator, we will investigate, no matter what.
Briefly, Mr. Serapio.
Ito po sistemang ito has reached its point of incompetence. No matter kung anumang subsystem or sectoral reform ang gawin, hindi po maaayos yan. Ang pinakasagot talaga rito ay total system change po. Kinakailangan tumawid tayo from the old political system to a new one. This is in the nature ng unitary system will always have this kind of problem po. Ganun po ang mangyayari dyan.
And speaking of corruption, it will be one of the priority topics in tomorrow's presidential debate with our very own Pio Ontiveros and Pinky Webb. Tune in to CNN Philippines for the presidential debate at 5 p.m.
You're watching the Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022 right here at the University of San. Again, thank you so much, USC. And thank you to Very Reverend Father Richard Ang, the Rector of USC. After the break, we'll shift our focus to our most precious resource, our children. How do we keep educating and protecting them? We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Suki! Siya ang bagong...
is the CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022, right here at the University of Santo Tomas. I'm Ruth Cabal.
And here with us on stage are 7 out of the 9 vice presidential candidates. I'm Rico Hizon.
The UNICEF reported that since the pandemic was declared, we have seen an increase in children who have been left hungry, isolated, abused, and anxious. In addition, the pandemic has caused the most severe education disruption in the world. Dito po natin nakita yung isang problema sa bansa natin, yung gap, yung pagitan sa rich and poor students, lalo na pagdating sa internet access. Ang question natin, as Vice President, how can you make sure that the internet is more accessible and more affordable to the students? We want to hear from Dr. Willie Ong.
Yes, oo. Salamat sa question, Ruth. Oo. Talaga itong education talaga pinaka-problema natin kasama yung sa internet. Nakakalungkot talaga po yung mga datos sa mga bata natin. 33% malnourished or stunted, yung maliit ang height. Dati ang data, 50% may bulati sa tiyan. Paano mag-aaral kung anemic? 10,000 na bata namamatay bawat taon sa diarrhea. Maruming tubig, walang pang ospital. Oo. Kaya yung access sa internet, may plano kami ni Mayor Isko dyan sa fiber optic na gagawin niya. Pagdating sa school, ano problema natin? Bullying. Nako, sa Twitter natin ngayon, baka marami na nag-away. Philippines, 45% ang bullying. Sa ibang bansa, 8% lang. Kaya kita nyo naman internet natin. Isa pa, ito medyo hindi alam to na kababayan natin. 31% lang ang growth mindset sa Pilipino. Isabihin, yung isip niya kaya niya maging mataas. Yung kaya mangarap, mababa tayo doon. Budget sa education, itataas natin. Sweldo ng teachers, grade 11 lang. Sa Maynila, ang dami tinayo ni Mayor Isko. Hospital, libreng tablet sa students, 20 gigs, 1,000 kada buwan binibigay. Mental health, linya ko po yan. Talagang tututukan ko yan kasi walang libre dito sa Pilipinas. Mahal pag nagkasakit sa depression, bipolar at iba pa.
Senate President Tito Soto, your views on more accessibility and affordability of the internet to students.
There is much to be desired sa kilos ng Executive Department pagdating dito. Because nung tinatalakay namin yung budget para sa 2022, ang DICT nangangailangan ng mga 18 billion para sa improvement ng broadband. At para maisaayos nationwide at libre para sa ating mga kababayan. Ang napasa at ang pinayagan ng DBM, 800,000 18 billion yung kailangan 800,000 Tinanong ko nga Senator Unasan, I know this because Senator Lacson is the one handling the budget of the DICT. And then tinanong namin Senator Unasan, ano magagawa niyo ng 800,000? Wala daw. Yun ang isang problema. Now, as far as the educational freedom of the institutions are concerned, I am all for it. Meron lang akong gusto idagdag sa educational system natin. Dapat yung grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, meron drug abuse resistance education program. Pagtungtong nila ng 13 years old, alam na nila, masama yung droga, masisira ang buhay ko dyan, masisira ang pamilya ko, masisira ang kinabukasan ko. Ganun dapat yan We will be saving more than 50% of these young boys na sila ay malulung dyan. Kung nandun na kaagad yung drug abuse resistance education program natin.
May we hear from Senator Kiko Pangilinan.
Yung Robredo Pangilinan tandem ay mayroong plano para sa edukasyon. Immediately, pag-upo, yung 90 billion, isang gadget bawat estudyante, isa yan, para talagang mabigyan ng sapat na suporta. Pangalawa, 300 pesos Wi-Fi load allowance kada isang buwan habang siya ay nag-aaral. So 90 billion yan immediately. Pero ang matinding problema din na dapat tugunan ay yung malnutrition ng ating mga anak. Paano ka mag-aaral ng maayos kung kumakalamang sikmura mo? Sabi nga, 95 young people are dying every day, our children, because of malnutrition. At yun ang ating kinakailangan gawin because we are food insecure. Yung stunting. Bakit stunting? Bakit maliliit? Bakit hindi lumalaki? Kulang ang nutrisyon, kulang ang timbang, kulang ang tangkad. Kinakailangan talaga tugunan yung food security. At paano natin gagawin yan? Dodoblehin ang budget ng agrikultura at titriplihin ang tiyak na yung dagdag na budget, madadagdagan ng ayuda at suporta sa ating mga magsasaka at mangingisda para tumaas ang kanilang ani at tumaas ang kanilang huli, at pagka marami ng supply ng pagkain sa ating merkado, bababa ang presyo ng pagkain. Yun nga, hello pagkain, goodbye gutom.
And this is a question for Mr. Serapio. UNICEF has also found that the Philippines is the epicenter of the live stream sexual abuse trade. Research found a 265% spike in online sexual abuses between March and May 2020. As Vice President, we want to know what difference can you make to protect our children against online abuse? Mr. Serapio, of 90 seconds.
Ang magagawa po natin dyan ay paggamit din po ulit ng teknolohiya para iyan ay ating ma-monitor ng mabuti. Ngayon po, gusto ko rin lamang pong sabihin, dahil ang pinag-uusapan lagi nga ay yung mga bilyon-bilyon na i-appropriate natin. Meron po bang na-allocate na pondo para sa ganitong mga programa? Kung wala po, kinakailangan pag-isipan kung saan kukunin yan doon sa mga ibinigay na pondo. Dahil ang bawat programa, kailangan ng pondo. At ang lahat ng papasok na bagong manunungkulan sa susunod na administrasyon, ang kanilang gagamitin ay yun na pondo na sa General Appropriations Act o na budget na. Kaya po, doon sa tanong ulit, kakailanganin po talaga niyan ng teknolohiya para na sa ganon ma-monitor ng gusto itong nangyayari po ng mga yan. Meron po niyan na ganyan technology kaagad. Napakabilis pong makita niyan.
Criminals also took advantage of the growing number of Filipinos doing financial transactions online. The Credit Card Association of the Philippines said credit card fraud surged by 21% since the pandemic started in 2020. Tighter regulations on SIM card registration is now one step away from becoming a law. This question is for Rizalito David. How will you crack down on criminals, cyber criminals, and safeguard the people's personal information? Mr. David.
Well, the law is already in place. It just have to be implemented properly.
Why do you think it's not being implemented properly?
Perhaps there's yung kakulangan nga ng political will and yung desire natin to really help out, no? Yung ating kapwa para maiwasan yung mga ganyang bagay. Wala na akong ibang maisasagot doon dahil nandiyan na yung batas Nasa executive department na lang yan kung paano nila gagawin. I don't know if some of them are even involved in these things. That's why nakakalusot. No? Ang dali lang naman yan even yung cyber sex, no? Kontrolado natin yung mga ISPs. Bakit hindi yun minomonitor maigi ng ating gobyerno? Lahat naman dadaan sa ISPs, di ba? So bakit nangyayari pa rin ito, no? So posibleng merong kontsabahan dahil malaking pera ang involved diyan. Paminsan-minsan naguhulihan, pero on the whole pera yung pinag-uusapan, corruption pa rin yung pinupuntahan nitong question na ito, no?
And Manny Lopez, your views on cyber criminality and safeguarding people's personal information.
Yes, being a technology management professional for several decades, I think a real problem is competence, technical competence. Our implementers, our policymakers are not really keen or properly equipped on the matter of technologies and management. To cite you one very concrete example, right in DICT, I concur with the observations of the industry that we need better leadership, more technically equipped, and really experienced on the area of technology management. But unfortunately, this is not the case. And so cybercrime is proliferating in the same manner that financial technologies is increasing. As a matter of fact, the application of financial technologies has been embraced because of the circumstances that we were in during the time of pandemic. And so accordingly, there was a corresponding increase in cybercrime because of the lack of proper guidelines, the lack of proper monitoring, and it bottoms down on the lack of competence. Ayusin po natin yan because the future is in information technology.
Ayan, Rico, ang dami na nating narinig from our vice presidential candidates. And we have one final question after the break. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022, right here at the University of Santo Tomas. Stay with us.
Toothpaste ba panlinis mo na?
Wind, show me where to go.
I love the way she makes me smile, she makes me smirk. It gives me chills, it makes me blush, it keeps me wet. And I can see her winning the Miss Universe. And if heaven does exist, it will most probably look like her, yeah.
May babae ako nakitang kay ganda. Yung mga mata niya ay bibihagin ka. Pag tumingin ka sa kanya ay matik na. Parang pinanaka ni Cupido, sapul na sapul ka.
Cause I lose myself around you, girl. You got some kind of way. There's just something about you, girl, that makes me wanna stay.
Kung ako na nga ang papipiliin, panalo ka na matik.
You are joining us live at the Quadricentennial Pavilion at the University of Santo Tomas. And we have one question left for our candidates, which will serve as our closing statement in this CNN Philippines Vice Presidential Debate. I'm Rico Hizon.
And I'm Ruth Cabal, and here is our final question, which will serve as your closing statement. The Constitution states that in case of death, permanent disability, or resignation of the President of the Philippines, the Vice Presidential act as Chief Executive. Question, candidates, are you ready to assume the presidency should an emergency happen? And what would that leadership look like? We start the question with Senator Soto kasi kanina nung intro we started with Congressman Bello. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I have built consensus with 23 republics as president of the Senate for almost 4 years. We believe in our competence, experience, and I think we will be guided well, not only by the good Lord, but of course, the experience that they've built within 30 years. Meron po kaming qualities na pinag-uusapan ni Senator Lacson na dala-dala namin dito sa eleksyon na ito. 3 K. Katapatan, kakayahan, katapangan. With this, I believe we will lead by example. Thank you.
Carlos Serapio, it's your turn.
By God's grace, I submit that I will be ready to assume the presidency should the occasion arise. I have thought a lot about presenting myself as a candidate in this coming election. I discerned, I reflected, I prayed. And I came to the conclusion that the 50 years of experience that I had been blessed to be part of the advocacy work of the just ordering of society will serve me in good stead. Should, again, I will be called to perform the duties of President. One can only do so with strength and courage if he depends on the source of all power. And that to me is the spirit of reason and the source of all reason, the source of all life, and that is God. So again, with the blessing of God, I think I am ready, willing, and able to be president of this country.
Senator Kiko Pangilinan.
Nung tinanggap ko yung hiling ng ating Vice President na si Lenny na maging Vice Presidential candidate niya, ako ay napaluha at nakita ng ating mga kababayan. Ang isang dahilan ay dahil nakita ko ang mabigat na tungkulin ng isang magiging Vice President at mabigat na mga problema ng ating bansa. Tinanggap ko yun dahil alam ko kung mahirap ang aming dadaanang kampanya, mas mahirap ang naging dinadaanan ng marami nating mga kabayan na matayan, walang trabaho, ginugutom. Sa pagkakataong yun, titiyakin natin, uunahin natin yung mga nasa laylayan, yung mga mahihirap nating mga kababayan. Bata pa lang akong abogado, ako na ay nagbibigay ng libreng serbisyong legal sa ating mga kababayan. Biko nga, isang bilaong biko ang bayad sa akin ng mga manggagawa. Hanggang sa ngayon, mga magsasaka at mangingisda ang ating ipinaglalaban dahil sila ang kapos. Hindi makatarungan na kung sino pa ang nagpapakain sa atin, sila ang gutom. Hindi katanggap-tanggap na ang isang tatang Meg na nakilala ko, 87 years old, nagsasaka pa, baon pa sa utang. That is an injustice that is not acceptable, and that's the kind of leadership that they can rely on us and Vice President Leni Robredo. Uunahin yung mga kapos. Maraming salamat.
Dr. Willie Ong, handa po ba kayong humalili bilang presidente, and what would that leadership look like?
Salamat, Ruth. Ako po isang doktor, internist, and cardiologist. Mahirap po maging cardiologist eh. Kami ang tumitingin sa code blue. Pag may namatay, pag may nagloko yung puso ng pasyente, we have to decide in 10 seconds, ito ba ang gamot? Ito, isang pagkakamali ko, pwede siyang mabuhay o mamatay. Yun stressful, pero sanay ako sa ganon. Dito sa gobyerno, marami kang advisor, pwede ka pa maghintay ng 1 linggo bago mag-decide. So tuloy-tuloy yung polisiya na plano ng aming program ni Mayor Isko. Meron kaming bilis kilos, 10-point program. Madalas for the past 4 months, ito po yung ginagawa namin. So tutuloy lang po natin to. Ako po ay isang doktor, 27 years. Libre ang serbisyo sa ating kababayan. Alam niyo, wala akong kaaway dito eh. Pwede naman tumakbo sa politika, walang kaaway. At sabihin ko na lang po, wala po akong campaign funds. Hindi ako tumatanggap sa kahit sinong negosyante. Eh kung tsatsamba tayo maging presidente, di makaka-decide ako ng napakaganda. Kung ano yung mga decision nyo sa West Philippine Sea, sa mining, yun ang magiging decision ko. Kasi walang humahawak sa akin. Kaya ko tumakbo, Facebook lang, at sa tulong at pagmamahal ninyo. Dito ako magsaserve kung saan nyo po kayo ilalagay. Maraming salamat po. Mahal na mahal ko po kayo. God bless po sa ating lahat.
Next, we have Mr. Manny Lopez.
Ako lang po ang kandidato para Vice Presidente na walang ka-official tandem na presidente. But I will fully commit to support the best, most qualified, and committed presidential candidate who will serve the interest and welfare of our people. I was tasked by the Labour Party leadership to seek the vice presidency in our collective effort to help rebuild the economy, address this unprecedented crisis, come up with proper solutions that will effect real change and reform, build a strong, just, and a progressive nation to help make lives better for our long-suffering people. Ako po bilang isang ekonomista at management professional, we came up with a 10-point socio-economic development and political reform agenda to help uplift the lives of our people. And bilang vice presidential candidate ng Labour Party, ako po ay handa na maglingkod sa ating sambayanan upang maitawid natin itong ating mga suliranin na haharapin sa mga darating na panahon. Salamat po.
Rizalito David, are you ready to assume the presidency should an emergency happen, and what would that leadership look like?
We are destined to greatness. Yan po ang pangarap ng Diyos para sa atin, subalit hindi nangyayari dahil may mga tao na pinipigilan na mangyari ang mga bagay na yan. Ako po ay pinanganak sa Tondo, doon lumaki, nag-aral sa pamantasan ng Pilipinas sa Los Baños. Nagtrabaho po ako na matagal sa Senado. Kasabayan ko pa nga po itong dalawa sa ating mga senador. Ang diferensya, hindi ako senador, sila senador, ako staff, pero mas marami kaming ginagawa. Yung preparasyon ko po ay narariyan. No? Hinihintay lang po ang pagkakataon. Kung yan po ay babagsak sa akin, tatanggapin ko po ng buong lugod at isasagawa ang mga bagay na dapat gawin para sa ating bayan. Katulad ng aking nasabi, we are destined to greatness. And we only need leaders to do this for us. Well, together with the people and share this vision. Kailangan natin ng malinaw na direksyon. At ano ba ang vision ng leader na yon? Malinaw na po sa akin yan. Naisulat ko na po yan doon sa aking tinatawag na rebuild. At ipinakita ko pa nga po kanina doon sa mga staff ng CNN kung ano itong sinulat ko na ito. Ako po'y nakahanda para sa ganyang pagkakataon. Marami pong salamat.
Walden Bello.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to CNN for this opportunity. Yes, I'll be ready to assume, but I really wanted to air some of my problems. You know, Sara Duterte is not here. They were watching us, you know, fighting one another, and she was not here to reveal her program because she has no program for the people. All she has is this mandatory military bill that would add 2 more years sa ating mga kababayan. 18-year-olds, they're trying to get out. No? I mean, we need Sara Duterte and Marcos to come and reveal themselves to the people. No? And that is why I don't like dumping on Senator Soto or Senator Pangilinan. No? I mean, really, you know, I think the main problem that we face is the Marcos-Duterte tandem. No? And I think that they just spat on the face of the Filipino people, telling them, you're not worth my giving you our programs because they have fucking no programs. Okay? So let me just end with that. You know, if I don't care what a number of people say, but I feel very strongly about the absence of these two idiots in this event. Thank you, CNN.
Candidates, we would like to thank you for your very generous time and for revealing to the Filipino people, sa buong sambayanan, ang inyong plataforma at programa kung kayo ang magiging vice-presidente ng Pilipinas. And after any debate, people often ask, who won? Who stood out? And who is the most qualified? So tell us what you think via the CNN Philippines digital platforms.
At marami na nga tayong reactions ngayon sa Twitter and Facebook. So to our audience, keep them coming. We want to hear from you. Alam mo, Rico, kasi yung mga ganitong debate, magandang pagkakataon talaga ito para makilala ang ating mga kandidato at marinig silang lahat. And again, we want to thank our candidates.
And gusto rin natin pasalamatan ang ating virtual audience who joined us for this Vice Presidential Debate 2022.
And of course, thank you very much to our host, the University of Santo Tomas.
Maraming salamat po.
Let's call in our candidates in alphabetical order. Former Akbayan Party List Representative Walden Bello. Please join us. Pro-life advocate Rizalito David.
Economist Manny S.D. Lopez.
Dr. Willie Ong, a cardiologist and social media personality.
Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan.
Lawyer Carlos Serapio.
And Senate President Tito Soto.
Maraming salamat po sa ating mga kandidato. Ako po si Ruth Cabal.
And I am Rico Hizon. Join us again tomorrow where 9 out of the 10 presidential candidates will be here, right here on the stage at the Quadricentennial Pavilion at the University of Santo Tomas to answer your questions. 5 to 7 p.m. Thank you for watching this CNN Philippines special presentation.
The Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022. Thank you.
New Carnation Evap, the cooking milk na sumichef. Angat sa milky namnam.
You're watching a CNN Philippines special presentation. I'm Ria Tanwat Cotrillo. And just a few moments ago, we saw 7 of the 9 candidates for Vice President face off in a debate. And it turned out to be a pretty lively one with many lively exchanges. We covered topics from corruption to COVID response to foreign policy, dynasties, and taxes. So as you can see here, this is a live shot of the stage. All of the candidates are no longer there. Of course, this was moderated by our anchors, Ruth Cabal and Rico Hizon. And as you know, as we said, this took place at the Quadricentennial Pavilion of the University of Santo Tomas, beautifully lit there, as you can see. And this is the same venue where the presidential debates will take place same time tomorrow. That is 5 p.m. All right, so still joining us this evening is Professor Dennis Coronacion from the University of Santo Tomas. And we also have with us De La Salle University International Studies Professor Renato De Castro. So we want to go over some of the key issues discussed in the forum. We won't go through everything, but maybe we can start with corruption. So Professor Dennis, how did you think the candidates fared when discussing this particular topic?
Well, I think most of them have, sound proposals when it comes to getting rid of systemic corruption. Well, our senators have come up with a proposal that that's based solely on the existing institutions. Like we should be more stringent in terms of collecting taxes and so on and so forth. But the more interesting, solutions come from, the other candidates, such as, you will get their solutions are based mainly on the principles that they are, fighting for, that they are espousing. So, for example, one vice presidential candidate is seeking, to get rid of corruption, is seeking for moral reformation in the government.
Right.
All right. So, well, I guess, the reason why this has become a major election issue, I suppose, corruption, is that because of the recent controversies,
right,
which involve the Duterte administration and the formerly controversy primarily.
All right. We'd like to pose that question now also to Dr. De Castro. How did you think they did? Were you happy with their answers on corruption?
You're expected. Some of them would rely on what they call legal remedies. Other would talk in terms, of course, of the institutions. One mentioned about moral rejuvenation, which is very interesting, that corruption is not simply a matter of, you have the laws, you have the institution, but something that emanates from the inside. Worth looking at, but nothing basically mentioned, of course, in terms of the societal. Something looking at deeper. And of course, the solutions they offer are basically legalistic, prosecutions of those who are involved in corruption, but nothing that would, of course, really address the societal dynamics of corruption.
Right.
But again, this is a chronic issue that has been discussed since, of course, we became a republic, in 1946. Nothing has changed so much.
All right, and with that, we are going to take a quick break. You are watching CNN Philippines special presentation on the just concluded vice presidential debate. Please stay tuned.